Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Junglist.
And I'm Bajo. Here at Good Game, we like to shoot things, well, virtually anyway, and this week has given us ample opportunity. Dead Space marks a new era of games for Electronic Arts, a sci-fi survival horror with an M rating.
And rather than the original studio Crytek, the sequel to Far Cry is being handled by Ubisoft Montreal. Big shoes to fill, and they've changed a few things, but have they messed it up or made it better? We'll find out later.
Plus, a quick look at Pro Evo, and with Gears of War 2 just around the corner, it's time to take a look at the history of Epic Games. And I get first play of the Good Game game, Office Wars. But first, it's Guess the Game time. But second, news time.
The 2008 World Game Master Tournament wrapped up last week, and Good Game was there to witness some of the finest competitive gaming in Australia. The Counter-Strike team competition was taken out by Fighting for Freedom, who wowed the crowds by finishing the competition undefeated, while teams Sublime and Livid came second and third respectively. The Quake 4 singles competition was won by Zelor, who also won the same event at last year's WGT, with second and third places taken by players Unholy and Hectic. The third division for Warcraft 3 was conquered by Glade, while the silver was won by a player calling himself Filthy, and the bronze going to another called Bout. Just to follow up on one of our biggest news stories from last week, the developers of Little Big Planet, Media Molecule, have issued an official public statement about the delay of their much-anticipated game. On their official website, Media Molecule announced that they were shell-shocked and gutted when Sony Computer Entertainment decided to issue a worldwide recall of Little Big Planet after it was found that one of the game's music tracks contained excerpts from the Quran in its lyrics. Sony Australia have issued a statement saying they are working towards a 7th of November local release date. Psychonauts creators Double Fine Productions are still without a publisher for their heavy metal-inspired fantasy game Brutal Legend after it was dropped by Sierra Entertainment earlier this year. Electronic Arts was rumored to be interested in the game, but recent comments made by EA CEO John Riccitiello have cast doubt on its future. Riccitiello was quoted by gaming website Gamasutra as saying that Brutal Legend posed a very significant creative risk for his company. He went on to state that sometimes creative risks end up being the world's best games and compared Brutal Legend to the likes of The Sims, Portal, and BioShock, but he stopped short of confirming any interest in publishing the title, leaving the game's fate undecided for now.
It's been a quiet year for survival horror games. Alone in the Dark didn't really make us jump out of our seats, and now with Silent Hill Homecoming banned from Australia, those of us who wish to be scared out of our pants this month have been forced to look at old pictures of Peanuts.
But all is not lost as EA ventures into the dark and an MA15+ rating with Dead Space for PC, 360, and PS3.
You are Isaac, and part of a team sent into deep space to investigate a communication breakdown aboard a mining ship. Upon approach, various things hit the fan, and you find yourself surrounded, stranded, and with only a mining tool by your side.
The best and often only way to take down an enemy is by strategically dismembering them. To do this, you have to think fast when you're approached by multiple enemies about which one is the biggest threat, how much ammo you can waste on him, and which weapon he's most vulnerable to.
You also have a stasis field alongside a somewhat unexplained telekinesis ability, and when you throw a stasis field down, it's time to get your surgery on.
All of the weapons are just cool, especially their second function.
You know, Jung, I've always felt that one of the key successes to any survival horror game is having that perfect balance of ammo and health. You know, a lot of games state that you're going to be always scrounging for health and ammo, but really you're never without. It hasn't really been done right since Resident Evil 1 and 2, in my opinion.
It's a hard balance to achieve. You don't want to have too long stretches without any power-ups or health pickups. That's just infuriating, but you don't want to make them so overpowered that the enemies are just in the way as opposed to a challenge.
Often in Dead Space, you'll find yourself weighing up whether to sell a whole weapon just for some ammo or health. And sometimes you'll be wanting to upgrade your rig or just buy a whole bunch of med packs. You will run out of ammo, you will run out of health, and you will die a lot, and it's not going to be pleasant. But like you say, Junk, this is a good thing, you know, it really raises the stakes.
The downside to all this is you probably spend about half the game breaking into ammo crates and scavenging dead bodies for supplies. pushing A to get every drop does get a bit tiresome, and we found ourselves using telekinesis more to collect drops than using it for projectiles.
This is a game that you really need to play loud. Often you'll see an enemy in the distance rush out of sight before you actually have to fight them, and this is very Doom 3. And when this is combined with Isaac's sluggish movements and slow reloads and progressive music, it really adds to the mood and the stress. But I don't know about you, Jung, I found myself only scared maybe once or twice in the whole game.
Well, there's some good misdirection here and there, but you work out pretty quickly that once you walk into a room, about 3 meters in, there's probably going to be a spawn of 3 to 4 guys. And there's some decent scares as well, but then again, they've got the normal cheap shots like aliens and crates.
Zero-gravity areas are usually puzzle-based, but there seems to always be an obligatory fight with every step in the puzzle, and these felt a bit forced to me, Jung.
Gameplay is extended a little bit by the Quake syndrome, but I didn't mind it so much. Doors take a long time to open, which kind of adds to the suspense, and you're checking to make sure you've got a full clip ready. But once you figure out it's a loading thing, it loses a bit of its mystery.
It's worth the wait, though, for this load, Jung, because it is a beautiful-looking game, and there's fantastic attention to detail in the lighting and in the whole sci-fi world. One of the main objectives of the developers in this game was to make you fully immersed in this world. We spoke to Glenn Schofield, the executive producer on the game, and asked him about it.
Everything that we could do in the game was to try and make you feel like you were there, and to make it scarier. Felt like having, this HUD on the side of the screen kind of always said, okay, there's a barrier between you and the environment, and we wanted to take that away and, turn off the lights and put it on loud, and there's no barrier. You are Isaac.
We haven't shown you some of the more exciting moments in the game, and that's because we don't want to spoil the surprise, but there's some great boss fights here, and there's over 10 hours of thrills to be had with Dead Space. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 scary chickens.
I would have liked more variety in the enemies. There's really only 6 and then harder versions of them. Also, they had this fantastic dismemberment technology. Why not just go to town with it, Having said that, though, sci-fi horror is a really hard genre to pull off, and they do it well. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10. These days, Epic Games are best known for their fast-fragging, curb-stomping, blockbusting action games. But there was a time when this game developer was known for something else: shareware. Epic Mega Games, as they were originally called, got their start in 1991 with this. It was called ZZT, and it was an action-adventure game designed and programmed entirely by the company's founder, Tim Sweeney. This was before the days of digital distribution, so ZZT was sold as shareware, with the game's first level coming for free, while the rest of the game was available to purchase by mail order. After getting a few checks in the mail, Epic Mega Games had enough capital to invest in a second game. That game was Jill of the Jungle, and it was a platform game, one of the most popular shareware genres of the time. And although Jill wasn't quite as fun as id Software's Commander Keen or Apogee Software's Duke Nukem, for example, having a half-naked Amazonian superwoman as its main character must have done something for it, because the mail orders came in by the bagful. The year after Jill of the Jungle's release was also important for Epic, as it was the year that a young game designer named Cliff Bleszinski would join the company.
I was just a kid sitting in my mom's house in California, and I was programming my own games. I was a horrible artist and I was a horrible programmer, but I wasn't going to let that stop me, and I managed to make my own title. Put it in an envelope, sent it off to Epic over in Maryland, and I got a phone call from Mark Rain, and I decided that I'd partner with these guys to publish the games that I was at that point producing.
Bleszinski's first game for Epic would be Dare to Dream, a point-and-click adventure game that took you inside an imaginary world of a 10-year-old boy. But it would be his next game that would really put Epic Mega Games into the big league. That game was Jazz Jackrabbit, a fast and colourful platformer that was heavily inspired by Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog.
They hooked me up with a program named Arjan Brissi, who had an engine that kind of felt like the game he was building felt kind of like Turrican, which was an old Amiga game. And then I was like, I just kind of want to make a game with a green rabbit in it. I was always a big fan of Sonic and Mario and those types of titles, but also wanted to make something that was just kind of like a Rambo rabbit, just a little green bunny that kicked ass with a big gun. And just kind of drew it myself, put it in the game, and worked on it for about a year and a half, 2 years, and actually released that title right when I was finishing up high school.
When Jazz Jackrabbit arrived in 1993, it was the closest thing that PC gamers had to a genuine console platformer. Over the next few years, the Jazz series grew to include a number of Christmas-themed expansion packs, as well as a proper sequel, which introduced the world to Jazz's politically incorrect cousin, Spaz Jackrabbit. Epic had plenty of other hit games, of course, with games like Extreme Pinball, space shooters like Solar Winds, or adventure platform games like Zargon, just to name a few. But by the mid to late 90s, the popularity of shareware games was on the decline. PC gamers had moved on to a new generation of 3D first-person shooters, and Epic needed a game that could compete with the likes of Quake and Half-Life. That game was Unreal. With one of the most advanced 3D graphics engines of its era, an exciting space opera storyline, and rock-solid shooting action, Unreal was one of the biggest PC game releases of 1998.
Unreal was set out originally to be kind of a more of an exploratory game in some ways, more so than a shooter. Back in that day, the kind of games that were popular were your Dooms and your Quakes, where it was very brown, dark, horror, scary corridors with, rocket launchers. And we wanted to make a world that felt vast and a world that felt mysterious, where the player could, at his leisure, go through this very large area and explore this alien church or find a wrecked alien spaceship. And we were very much young, bullheaded designers building whatever the hell we wanted to, and we were somehow able to kind of pull that together into a cohesive universe and make a game that many gamers see as a classic.
The response to Unreal was good, so good in fact that Epic Mega Games decided to celebrate, firstly by getting rid of their Mega by changing their name to just Epic Games, and secondly by releasing a truckload of Unreal sequels. As we all know, Unreal went on to spawn one single-player sequel and no less than 6 multiplayer sequels in the form of the Unreal Tournament series, which is still one of the leading competitive FPS games today. By 2006, Epic were one of the leading PC game developers, but they hadn't had much of an impact on home consoles. All that changed with Gears of War. With Gears, Epic combined ultra-violent steroid junkies with chainsaw guns and a post-apocalyptic wasteland filled with butt-ugly aliens. A winning combination if there ever was one. Next week, we'll finally get to see how Epic's 17-year history has influenced their latest game, Gears of War 2. But until then, I'm getting back to my half-naked Amazonian. Exciting news, Jung. We can now announce the musicians whose music will be included in the Good Game game Office Wars.
That's right. Congratulations to Zach Blind Pew Pew, who has done the theme music, and Barry Van Outshorn, or Barry Van, whose music will play whilst you level up your character.
Time now to see how things are progressing on the game down in Melbourne.
As you can see, we're in the new office, and it's taken us quite a few months to get this all happening and underway. The Good Game project is right on track where I want it to be right now. It's actually come along a little bit faster than I thought in the last month, which is surprising. Almost nothing ever works faster than I expect.
The schedule we've got now is a lot busier than what we had previously. We've really kicked into the production side of things.
We've pretty much finished the first level of the game. There's just a few little things Zach has to finish. You probably haven't finished today.
We've been trying to organise the new office as well, and Janine has just done a fantastic job in organising the office. She's had a project manager to help her out, but she's been really shouldering the most of this work, and I've been kind of the guy who sits back and just say, make it so.
I probably haven't devoted as much time to Good Game as I'd like to, but Tim's actually been picking up the slack on production on that, so he's doing really well. We
had a bit of extra time, so I put some tutorial screens at the start, because we sort of realised when we were getting some people in the office to play it, they just didn't know what to do. We had to chop pretty much everything down to the bare minimum we could run with. I sort of planned for 5 levels, and we ended up chopping it to 2 levels. We had about 12 characters, and now I think we have about 5. We haven't compromised the actual gameplay, so we've just decided to focus on making sort of 2 really polished levels. It might be a bit different to what maybe some of the people from Good Game expected, but I still think that there's enough there that they'd recognise it.
There's a little bit of pressure with it because it's kind of on Tim and my heads if it if it tanks. So turns out that today we're getting a visit from a fella by the name of Bajo. He's coming here to play the demo, I've been told. We'll find out how many rubber chickens we get at the end of it.
This is the Good Game project. It's actually playable. You can sit down and take a look if you'd like.
I'd very much like to do that.
Basically, the idea is you sort of go in the office and you have all your co-workers, they're giving you tasks to do, and all the tasks are handed out from the phone. Every now and then, a random thing will happen where the printer will be out of ink, or In this level, the water cooler can run out of water. So it's just kind of little things that can happen that can stuff you up.
I imagined it would look a lot simpler, but this actually looks really, really cool.
It's a lot about the art style and sort of, being very comical and stuff. And
It's kind of like an office too, where you've got a lot of things to do at once, so you kind of have to do it like that.
Yeah,
So-
well, that was sort of the major challenge, taking what's pretty menial and boring, like printing out a report, but kind of trying to make it fun.
We've got a Besser block for the pillow on the bed, and it took us a long time to actually come up with the right brick
Why?
for the job because, well, we thought of just having a normal red brick, but that was just too boring and too small, and it took us a good 45 minutes to come up with the right brick to have as a Besser block.
Well, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
It's mixed into 5 days of the week, so you
Okay.
start on Monday and you work through to Friday. And there's just little objectives for each day. And at the end of Friday, which is the 5th day, you want to earn enough money to afford the item to kill the boss. It's like a cutscene, and then you progress to the next office.
Is it rewarding seeing all this work that you've been doing finally on the screen and actually being able to play it and interact with it?
It's rewarding. It's also a bit of a relief as well, because we didn't really know how it was going to turn out.
Oh, it looks great. I want to go. Okay, so I'm retrieving my report. So his phone's ringing again. Oh, the phone just does not stop ringing. I tell you what, come on. So it's actually quite hectic. I'm getting overwhelmed a little bit here by all the things I have to do. And so I'm trying to keep an eye on my energy and everything and make sure it's...
It'd be much easier when we actually have the proper UI, so it'd be like sort of flashing lights and stuff.
I think I'm failing at my job here a little bit. Oh, it does fail. It does fail. Even though it's obviously, early stages, I'm getting a feel for what it's like already, that hectic kind of micro and running around, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting. You guys must be wrapped.
Well, we're very glad that you've enjoyed it. It was kind of the litmus test was to have someone from the outside look at it.
All right, Badger, spill your guts. How is Office Wars?
Well, I was surprised at how good it actually looked at such an early stage, and I think once it has all the HUD in there and all the animations, we'll get a better idea of how things are shaping up, but it's looking good so far.
What kind of a game is it?
It seems to be all about the micro, and hectic micromanagement, kind of like Sims 2, but yeah, much faster, much more hectic. But the version I was playing was only slightly playable, so I think we're still going to have to wait and see.
Well, only time will tell, and of course we'll keep you updated as things progress. But for now, Fatal Rage of Conflict.
I can't believe this. Thrown in a castle dungeon. Did you hear that, cop? Stop right there, criminal scum. I told you, you should have paid the fine. This is what we get for fighting on a rooftop venue. Reserved for Ken and Ryu. I'm hungry. Let's make a jailbreak. I don't think that's gonna work. I guess I get your point, huh, Todd? Be serious. We're gonna die in here if we don't get out. I'm sure someone will be along to save us soon. See? Rick's the only princess here, pal. You should try another castle. Save us soon? Wow, deja vu. Someone not looking to rescue a princess should be here soon. Woohoo! Not you again. Oh, where's the princess? No princess, another castle. So hungry. Rick, no! Great job, Rick. You ate our rescue team. How do you plan to break out now, Houdini? It just so happens I have a plan. There! This is stupid. And blue clashes with my hair. Somene's coming. Help! I'm a hot frickin' damsel in distress.
Hey, princesses! We heard your call! And whoa!
This is totally not worth the 15 achievement points. I call dibs on the fat one.
Gentlemen, you are posted here all day. On my way back, I grabbed some cold beer. You drink beer,
Yep, beer. We drink beer. Hurry up then. Move along.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. See you soon, sir.
You're forgiven for thinking what you just saw was a cutscene. But there are no cutscenes in Far Cry 2. There's barely even an interface. And these might sound like bad things, but Ubisoft Montreal has taken over this franchise, and they believe that one point of view adds to the immersion and makes it like a playable movie. Were they right? Hell yes.
As a gun for hire, you're sent into an African nation descending into war and anarchy. Anyone with money or influence has left already. Your mission is to find an arms dealer known as the Jackal, who's supplying both sides with weapons. And if that's not complicated enough, you start the game with malaria and no medication. You'll need to help out local factions to find out information about the Jackal's whereabouts. Along the way, you'll make some buddies, do side quests to unlock new weapons, and play it all out in glorious African intrigue. In a choose-your-own-adventure kind of way, your buddies will offer you an alternate way to complete missions. Your reward stays the same, but your objective and the story may change.
Act 1 is full of suicidal enemies, but as you build your reputation, they'll learn to fear you. In open ground, they'll call for reinforcements and flank you. If you make a sound inside a building, they'll even try to blast through weak walls to flush you out. And as a player, you'll learn to be aware of the battle in 360 degrees, not just what's in front of you.
Given your enemies aren't idiots, you might want to take a more stealthy approach. And you don't always have the chance, but given the opportunity to take out your target with one well-placed bullet, you're going to want to take it. On the whole, we found the Rambo approach a lot quicker, but a stealthy night attack more fun.
But it doesn't stop there. AI routines are different at any point in the 24-hour day and night cycle. Set your watch for dawn to attack while they're sleeping. Attack at midnight to sneak up behind a drunk soldier taking a leak. Or set your watch for 9 p.m. just to see the beautiful sunset.
That was fantastic, wasn't it? It's really great to watch the fire in this game as well. Being the dry season in Africa, the wind will actually determine which way the fire goes.
All around, I've got to say, this is the best looking open world game I've ever seen. The only comparison I can come up with for its day was Oblivion.
Oh, that's a big call, man. There's some pretty nice sunsets in Liberty City.
But I think this has it all over GTA. But you were actually playing the 360 version of Far Cry 2, weren't you?
That's true. You can always scale up a PC graphics, but consoles are set at that point usually.
But the PC version graphics are absolutely smoking, and all this is thanks to their new Dunia engine, which streams data incredibly fast as you move forward. As a result, none of the vehicles move very fast in Far Cry 2, but a lot good can be said about the Dunia engine. Were you one of the ones that went to Africa?
Yeah, went to Kenya for 14 days of a great trip last summer. We went and camped in the savannah, and basically we had armed rangers with us, you know, carrying their AK-47s to protect us because we were in pretty dangerous territory. So we really got the chance to really experience what Africa is, what the savannah is, and, you know, taking loads and loads of pictures for references. Actually, the game changed a lot, because we had the North American vision of what Africa was. And when we got there, we came back and says, okay, guys, we're not in the right direction. We need to change a few things.
That was Louis-Pierre Fallon, or LP for short, who's the producer on the game.
With all the elements in an open-world game, they typically become a jack-of-all-trades, master of none. But by open-world standards, Far Cry 2 raises the bar everywhere. Driving, shooting, story, graphics, all better than what we're used to seeing in an open world.
Another open world problem is that after about 10 hours, you start to feel like you've seen everything in the game. And you get that a bit with Far Cry 2, and some of the missions start to feel a bit samey, but then they'll throw a plot twist in or give you a new weapon like the mortar, which is great fun.
A lot of time is spent riding around, though, and often your primary and secondary objectives are as far apart as they possibly could be. It's inconvenient, and the repetitive mantra seems to be stop the vehicle, get on the 50 cal, shoot some easy enemies, repair the vehicle, and keep on driving. And you do that about every 60 seconds.
Falling in line with the user-generated revolution, you can create your own levels using the level editor, and the key here is automation.
Far Cry 2 can automatically designate foliage, which will change as you change the elevation and add roads and buildings. You can even change the environment with a click of a button.
And as you say, Jung, you know, the shooting mechanics aren't really tight enough for this to be the next big thing online, but multiplayer won't disappoint when it's this easy to make your own levels.
Far Cry 2 isn't available for download from Steam for Australians. Ubisoft couldn't say why, but the end result is we have to pay more for a store copy as usual. The good news is, whether you lump Far Cry 2 into the open world category or the shooter category, it still stands up as an awesome game. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
And you gotta love the healing of critical wounds. It's hardcore. I know Ubi quoted 50 to 100 hours of gameplay here, but we figure it's closer to 25 to 30, and that includes side missions. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game!
Jung, I can't help but feel we should talk about the new Pro Evo, considering we reviewed FIFA a few weeks back.
I don't know about you, but it kind of feels like it forces you to play a more respectful, passing-based game of football.
Yeah, and the commentators, are more edgy and more excited or even more controversial, which is a new take, and that's kind of cool.
But as you said in the FIFA review a little while ago, and I think you're absolutely right, is even if you're approaching these games with an intermediate level of football knowledge, there's still a lot to learn in terms of the tactics and the moves. So a tutorial would be a great idea, even for the enthusiast. Pro Evo kind of goes there. You can practice your shots and your corners, but then it just stops right there. It should have gone further.
And only 5 leagues.
Yeah, no, I'm all about my Bayern Munich at the moment, and there's no Bundesliga.
2009, does it go to FIFA?
I think so. I think it all has to do with this philosophy change that we're seeing from EA Sports lately, really focusing on tightening up the gameplay. Might have something to do with Peter Moore joining their ranks.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. So did you guess the game for this week? It was the original Alone in the Dark, which was the first survival horror game in 3D. It was produced in 1992 for the PC and really led the way for the genre.
There have been 4 subsequent games. The latest, creatively titled Alone in the Dark, was released for next-gen consoles this year. Unfortunately, despite an exciting first hour of gameplay, it turned into a monotonous, very non-scary grind. That about wraps it up for this week, but the big games keep on coming. Next week, Marcus Phoenix is back in Gears of War 2, and lead creative Cliff Bleszinski stops by for a chat. Big times ahead, and with so much coming out and so much happening, we're releasing more than ever exclusive content onto our website. Until next week, gamers, make sure all your games are good ones. Junglist out.
Bajo out.